Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Fringe North podcast. My name is Caitlin Townsend, and I am the project coordinator for this year's festival. And I have with me here today Jonathan. Would you like to take some time to introduce yourself, Jonathan, and to share a little bit about your art?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. And first of all, I just wanted to say thanks for your patience in terms of we had some difficulty connecting, and we've had some extreme heat over here in BC. The last few days, we had a heat wave and actually a ton of wildfires. So I don't know if my brain's a little foggy from all the heat or what, but I'm glad we got to connect finally. So yeah, I'm Jonathan. I'm a writer, performer, and I'm very pleased to be participating in this year's virtual Fringe Festival. And my show is called Run Like Hell. And it is basically a story about how I developed an unhealthy obsession with running. And people that are very into exercise and also people that hate exercise, I think will find it entertaining and engaging. So I hope folks come out to the show.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. So as an artist, what does your work aim to say and to express to the world?
Yeah, I mean, these are hard hitting and broad questions. In terms of the meaning, I think people take art, any given piece of art, to mean different things. And in some ways, sorry, I'm not trying to avoid your question, but in some ways, I think it doesn't. My intention doesn't matter so much. And I think the reason is because the way I view art is that it's really about the process of engaging with the piece, whatever it is. So whether it's like music, a show, a painting, whatever, sometimes it's not always possible to understand what is meant by a piece of art, maybe because you don't have Bob Dylan's phone number, you can't call him up or ask him. Maybe an artist is not honest about what their intention is, or maybe they're just really kind of a recluse, or maybe they're dead, you know, you know, the important thing is just interacting with the art. And the beautiful thing about it is that people can take different things from the same piece of art. I think what I hope for my show is that people find pieces that are interesting, insightful, funny, dark, and pieces that stick with them. And really, my show is about how I very briefly, at the risk of spoiling anything, I had a very stressful job, and to deal with that stress, you think where this is going, I started running, but no, I actually started eating a bunch and dealing with stress via really like eating too much. And I gained a bunch of weight. And so I started running not through ambition or a desire to be healthy, but through vanity. I really was like out of shape, and I wanted to get back into shape. But then I really got into it. I started long distance running, and I got fascinated with the sport, and kind of went deeper and deeper into a bunch of running subcultures, and ended up running like really long races, marathons, ultra marathons, 50K, 50 miles, 100K, like these sorts of distances. And so races that take days, you're running for days. And so the story is really about my descent sort of into that culture, and my obsession with running. So I hope people find something to take away from it that they enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's a really common thing to to deal with stress through running. And I know through like eating and then getting into the running. I went through a similar thing as a kid, when my parents got divorced. I was medicating through food and then got into the running process. Not to that extent, but yeah, I think it's really common. And I really want to pull out here how you were talking to the co-creation piece of art, because I think that that's so important in terms of not being able to control how somebody interacts with your art and to really build that relationship together with your audience through the different ways that they're engaging with it, which is exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things, obviously this year, the performances are going to be recorded and watched. But typically with Fringe, what happens is it's a live show, right? And so it's great how it is a co-creation for sure in terms of the experience. And the artist experiences that as much as the audience does as well. So that's one of the things I like about live performance.
Yeah, for sure. And with this new like COVID world and shifting into that, how are you finding the change from, because it's a different way that you're engaging with your audience, right? When you can't hear them laughing or see someone smile when you do something on stage. So how are you adjusting to that?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's been a rough year and a half for for everyone in terms of connecting with people virtually. Not having that live interaction. I think one of the drawbacks is that you don't have that energy to feed off of in the moment. But one positive thing I've taken out of this is that it has made me a bit more thoughtful in terms of wanting to be very intentional about how I present a piece or my writing, that sort of thing. Because to be honest with you, we've all had a lot of time
Mm.
over the last like year and a half to like kind of sit and think.
Mhm.
So it's made me a bit more thoughtful. I think that's one of the things I'm grateful about during this time. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great to hear. And yeah, I think there's as many has many advantages from COVID than there are disadvantages. And sometimes we can get caught up in the negative side of things and not see the way that it's actually making us stronger in art or whatever our sphere is that we're working in. So reflecting on the fact that your piece kind of dives into what I would imagine were some challenging times for you as you were getting into running, and I'm what is it challenging to kind of dive back into that part of your past, or how does that play out in your script?
Yeah. So it is. It is a very personal piece in some ways, but no, I wouldn't say it's been challenging. It's been an interesting. Basically, what I take people through, and if they see the show, they'll they'll experience this is sort of like a 7 to 10 year period. I pick out bits and pieces of experiences I had with injuries, with training, with kind of the interesting characters I met in the ultra running scene. Um, but no, I wouldn't say it was difficult. It's actually, if anything, it's made me a bit nostalgic.
Mhm.
Um, and it's made me kind of like think back on all of the it's funny because I talk about all of these kind of injuries and kind of dark mental places I go to while I'm running, while I'm doing a race, all of this sort of stuff. So there are some dark pieces in there, but the feeling I got over and over again when I was writing the script was yeah, just warm reflections on what it did for me, the people I met. So I don't think it's cathartic is the wrong word, and I think it's kind of trite to say. I mean, of course, people and artists express themselves through their art, and that feels good, and it can be therapeutic. Of course, all that's true. But no, I've been kind of like warmly looking back on the time and when I was like uh, uh, you know edging towards being dangerously obsessed with running in terms of running so much that I was becoming very injured and very sick and running through that. So yeah, no, it's been yeah, I seem to remember the good times, but like I end up writing about the rough times. I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes any sense, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because it's helpful usually for audience members too to see like those darker elements, and it kind of makes us more recognize our humanness, I guess, and to learn from each other in that way.
For sure. And I hope, and I guess that's what I was trying to say earlier about, I hope a cross section of people will enjoy the show, attend the show, and not be turned off by the fact that it's about running or exercise or anything like that. I think there are a lot of pieces people can connect to because because nothing. I think that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So how long have you been writing in the artistic space?
Yeah. So I've always enjoyed. I've actually been a reader for far longer than I've been a writer, but I think over the last, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years, I've really gotten into writing. So short stories, longer form material like this piece. But it's yeah, I just really have a love for stories and for reading, and I guess I've gotten into it that way through a means of expressing myself. Yeah, I'd say 6 years, 7 years, something like that. I've yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I don't mean to
And
cut you off.
no, that's awesome. I'm just curious as to which piece that you've worked on is your favorite, and I mean, with art, it's kind of hard sometimes, right? Because you have different pieces that are favorites in different ways, if that makes sense. So I'm wondering which one is your favorite and that you're most proud of, or those different pieces.
Yeah, yeah. I think this piece, Run Like Hell, is definitely one of my more personal uh, pieces. And I think talking about favorites in different ways, I think this piece is my favorite in that way, in that it's quite honest. It's quite it's pretty raw in some sections, um, and and yeah, I think this piece is one of those pieces um, for that reason.
That's awesome. And over those, I think you said 7 years of being in the space, how have you developed your career, and what has shifted about it from the start to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, to be totally honest, the writing and the performing is not my main gig. I have like a kind of standard 9 to 5 office job, working in a cubicle. Uh, um, so in some ways, maybe I'll take the first part of the question first. It it started with just being kind of bored and wanting to express myself in a way that I couldn't at work or in other contexts. And so that's how it started. And in a way, it hasn't really changed in the way I've developed my career or writing or style. Um, I do it because I love to do it. And in some ways, you know, I feel like, okay, well, maybe I'm performing with these other artists that are doing it full time, and maybe, that's a better route to take because it's more like authentic or whatever. But on the other hand, I think that for myself, I, I'm not paying the bills with art, and so I really, because I'm not paying the bills, I don't really have anything to lose in terms of my writing, performing. And so I think that actually gives me a pretty high degree of self, it's like permission to
Hmm.
say whatever, do whatever I want, not worry about how it's going to impact the next contract or the future of this portion of my career or whatever. So yeah, it's started as a fun and interesting thing to do on the evenings and weekends, and it continues to be that. For me, I think maybe the one thing that's changed a little bit is, as I've done it more and more and done more shows, I have met other artists and other performers, and that kind of inspire and encourage me. And so, I mean, and that gives you a lot of momentum and inspiration in terms of writing, especially if you've been doing it on your own for a while. So I think that's one way in which I've developed a little bit, is not being scared to reach out. That sort of thing. Not scared to reach out, but just having a bit more of a network of other artists that you respect and trust, that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. You can, kind of complain with when you have writer's block or whatever it is, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So as you're connecting with all these other artists, who has had the biggest impact on your art and how you connect to the artistic space?
Yeah. So, so like I said, I have a standard, boring 9 to 5 office job. In some ways, some people would see it that way. I really enjoy the job, but some people would see it that way. My brother is like a true artist through and through. He's a musician. He is primarily a jazz musician, but he's also a session musician and teaches music and that sort of thing. So honestly, seeing him just dive off the deep end into an artistic career has really inspired me to kind of build up my art in the small ways that I have. Yeah, I think seeing honestly, like how brave he is and how much vision he has in terms of just going after it, is really cool. Like just moving to cities like Montreal and New Orleans without knowing anyone, and just building his art and his craft there in those places. Like, yeah, I think he's influenced me quite a bit.
It's awesome. It's great that you're both kind of in similar spaces artistically, and can it just adds that connection when it's family, right? So it's really nice. So what can festival goers expect from your piece this year, and what do you hope that they gain from it?
So what can they expect? I think they can expect a story about running, a story about a story about running and mental health, and I the really thin line between ambition and obsession, and trying to straddle that line, or being on one side of that line more than the other. I think being really hard on yourself is a theme as well, and you definitely don't need to run to be hard on yourself. Yeah, I think people can expect a show that is entertaining. It's funny. It's actually quite fascinating too. The running subcultures I go into and explain a little bit. So some of the really niche subcultures in terms of ultra running on the west coast of Canada. Some of the really bizarre races that are run, like 100-mile races through the forest in the middle of the night. There's wildlife. There's people getting lost and going off trail, and then a search and rescue team has to go find them. Like there's a lot of really fascinating, interesting stuff. So I would expect people to be entertained by that, and hopefully hopefully take away one or two interesting tidbits from it. So.
That sounds really exciting. And as an artist, what are you most excited about in terms of being able to participate in the festival this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I'm most excited about is the chance to see how this virtual thing plays
Mm.
out, to be honest with you. Um, I it's tough for people that are performing at fringe shows and are trying to do a bit of a tour because it's expensive, and also, you know, it's contingent upon you getting into the festivals you want to get into and that sort of thing. So I'd like to see how this virtual platform, this virtual delivery of this festival plays out. I'm, you know, in some ways, I'm concerned that, I know for myself, I have a bit of Zoom fatigue. Maybe other people do as well, but I hope that as things start to open up, uh, um, you know, with COVID restrictions being rolled back, that people will still find time and interest in watching some local Canadian artists do their thing
Mhm.
online. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we are thrilled to have you a part of our festival this year, and we look forward to it. For those of you watching, the festival is running from August 19th to 22nd. You can come on out and watch Jonathan's show and come support him and buy a ticket. And thank you for your time today, Jonathan, and for coming on. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching as well. Miigwech, merci, and gracias for being part of our podcast today. We'll see you all again soon. Thank you for watching our podcast. Merci, miigwech, gracias. If you like what we're doing, you can support Fringe North and the artists involved in this year's festival financially so that we can continue this work. Visit www.fringenorth.ca to find out more.